Hi, Ben here from Supercoach Insider, bringing you my team into round 5. Now, this year has been very challenging. Shout out to Supercoach DR. I know a lot of people are feeling the hurt and the pain. This is Supercoach. You have to ride with the challenges and you have to go with the ups and flows. So today I'm going to talk about my team, and I'm in a bit of a predicament. So I'm going to talk about these strategies, or at least the thinking of, and to get myself out of it. So if you haven't already, like, subscribe, and follow us along. I scored 2,117 on the week just gone. I have slid a little bit. I'm now 6,223 in ranking. And pretty much it's just been a lot of the 50-50s for me that haven't really worked out. And I guess me not rating small forwards as much has kind of hurt me a little bit, because Long has killed it for West Coast. Davey's kind of chipping away. He's not really impacting me as much. Filippo had, after his impressive first game, I think stalled a little bit. So there's a little bit of issue at the moment with generation of cash and rookies stalling. On top of that, you've also got some of these rookies where, like Samson Ryan has been, subbed out of the game. You had Hewitt from West Coast being the sub. You had, Phillips as well for North, who was, obviously the sub first game, dropped, and a whole bunch of things. So it's definitely a challenging time where I'm hoping now, with the big news of Doherty being out, which is huge, that maybe like Kincotta could get a game. So that would be one that we might be able to have for, say, 4 to 6 weeks. Now, because he's so cheap, I expect that even over, say, 2 to 4 price rises, I think he should still make enough cash, hopefully. And hopefully they don't kind of rush Doherty back. So, it was surgery, so I'm not sure it's going to be on the smaller end of things. But I guess we will wait and see. But Doherty has been a pain in the ass ever since, because, as we know, I could have got Dawson all preseason. In a lot of my pods, I had Dawson in my team. Was a little bit worried about the tag in round 6. Now, that's still there, except the only thing saving maybe Dawson, I doubt they're going to tag Laird after how hot Dawson's been, and he's so much more damaging with ball in hand than Laird would be. So it's interesting. Maybe that's a bit of an insight now that teams will go, oh, actually, we need to spend a little bit of time on him. So that's possibly what might be coming next week as far as Hawthorn. But Finn McGuinness hasn't exactly been doing that great either, and I think he got subbed out of one game. So I'm not sure how scared you can be of someone who's not really doing that well to begin with. So it'll be really interesting on that fact. Now, the other thing to mention as well is that with, Laird, maybe not Laird, but with Dawson, if he's playing midfield, then you've also got Hewitt, who pretty much sacrificed a bit of his game last week and did a run with Luke Davies-Uniacke. So he was matched up with him at stoppages and pretty much trying to negate him a little bit. Not a full tag roll, but definitely trying to negate him at stoppages. So that's something that could be happening to either Laird or Dawson, something that we should probably keep an eye out for as well. So when we have a look, now I've burnt through a few trades, which in hindsight, I guess the Witts one would have happened anyway, because Witts is out. Looks like he's not going to play again this week. So there's an interesting one. So that would have had to happen anyway. The strategy that I went into picking up Jeremy Cameron at the time, I said not Jeremy Cameron, he's killing it. So a Darcy Cameron at the time was to pretty much try and free up some cash for some moves and get someone who has higher ownership and who I thought would be a top 6 forward. And that's then kind of catapulted into, I needed a replacement for him. And I also wanted Clary. Now, in the end, what I did go with, which is interesting, so I went with Rouston instead of Phillips. I regret that, based on role and based on I thought he had more job security. But in the end, all that happened was Phillips scored well enough to make more money, and Cunnington got subs, so now there's question marks on him and whether Clarko rates him. And Phillips now probably looks even better. So they're the risks you take. And sometimes you just have to look at who looks like they're going to make more cash and maybe just lock them in rather than going, oh, maybe he'll be better for the third run. Because all that Ralston did was play like 56% time on ground and didn't get a whole heap of it. So in his defense, though, he had the ball kicked over his head 3 times. So his teammates couldn't hit a target to save their life. So realistically, he just lost 3 possessions because his teammates can't kick. Yeah, no fault of his own. So it'll be interesting to see whether he's named this week. It'll be just my luck that he gets dropped, which would be very, very interesting. So, yeah, look, my team. So what I ended up doing last week is I actually brought in Ralston for Callahan to free up some money. At that point in time, I had Goulden in the midfield, just because of Chandler being on field scorer at the time. It was Yeah, so I thought I could do that. Shees was obviously on field, so then I went and brought Clary into my team, and I brought him in for. So I went Grundy for Darcy Cameron. So reasoning being because I wanted Clary. Now it was going to probably cost me too much to try and get Clary and otherwise. Now Clary didn't set the world alight as far as his numbers. He had a pretty much someone running with him all day, but he is still the best captain option, I believe. So I'm not upset I've got him because I to have a good VCNC option each week is underrated, and I really want to have him in my VCLC mix up just because of his consistency. So I'm not too upset with that. The issue it does leave me though is that now, so I've got Grundy and I brought Clary and I actually got rid of Goulden. Now the reasoning was not specifically to get rid of him, but it was more the role the week before that, Mills was tagging someone, so he had more CBA midfield on that one, and he had less. At that point, I was like, okay, well, looking at my midfielders, he was kind of on the fringe as far as like, yeah, he probably could be top 6, right? But then they also have the first buy as well. So I thought, well, if worst case scenario, if I'm wrong, and they have their buy and he looks like he's going to be top 6, and I can bring him in then, he's not really hurting me as far as like price point or anything at this current point in time. And the week just gone, he wasn't doing very well for, I'd say, at least the first half, right? So Goulden was on like 30 odd, and even then he looked like it was going to be a lot less. Like he was one of the worst scorers for the first half, and then kind of came through it a little bit. The third term he got a little bit more involved, but it was that last term where he actually, got a lot of tackles, contested possessions, free kicks for, and really brought himself into the game and scraped through 100, which is good if you're an owner of him. I was pretty much happy most of the game until he just kept racking up points in the last quarter. But he still didn't have much of an inside role. Last quarter, he got some CBAs. He did get some CBAs, but no way near that 50 to 70% that we sort of had in the preseason, or 50% that we thought, that he'd end up with. So it was really interesting. And in this game, they actually had Rowbottom going and running with Rosie. So it looks like what they're kind of doing is they're going, okay, well, who's the best midfielder for the opposition? Now, if it's a bigger body mid, then they went, okay, Mills, you're going up against Clary. This one was like Rosie, who had the most impact. So like, okay, well, then we'll put Rowbottom on him. And all that means is that each time is that Goulden actually gets pushed out. So I think I saw him at the wing at one point. The other part was if it was like forward flank, he'd pretty much be pushed up the ground a bit and then trying to, he'd be, if Sydney, say, switched it from one wing to the midfield, then Goulden would be working super hard to try and be free on the other side. And all that meant is that he had some inside 50s and a few other pieces with that. So look, he's not a bad player. It was just for me, I just really wanted Clarion. Grundy, I was really happy with because I was like, well, Gorman was 3 to 4 away. That's now turned into 1 to 2. So if you're like me, that's a little bit, look, happy with the score. Hoping he still does well again this week to kind of still bump up his cash. I'm hoping that with, maybe the easy run or the fact that Grundy is in, basically not career best form, but based to his old self, that they'll keep him in that role predominantly, and he's gone back in with a few forward games. So what that does leave is that Van Rooston, who I was considering in my team, I think there's question marks on him now. And the thing that it comes down to is that you had McDonald was out in the seconds. Ben Brown had, obviously was a little bit sore, so he came out. And McDonald came back and tailed it. So he went back to the VFL, got some confidence, was really dominant, came back in and brought that form with him. So that now raises more questions for Royston as well. So Van Rooston, Van Rouston. So that's an issue. Now, if Gawn comes back into that mix as well and playing forward or resting forward, then it's going to create more havoc because, Gawn being injured was the whole reason that Van Rouston actually got into that side. So you have Ben Brown, you have McDonald kind of vying at the bit as well. Now, I do hear that Melbourne really rate him, but it's a little bit questionable for me as far as a key forward goes. Now, we've already seen what can happen with key forwards. You can get up the ground, you can get a lot of the ball. He's also getting some hit-outs as well, and some hit-outs. That won't be there if Gawn's there either. So, yeah, as we've already seen with Coburn how well he can score if he gets some hit-outs and some CBAs and dominates as a key forward. And then on the flip side, though, he might just disappear and go 20 or 31 games. So I do like him as a player. I'm just not sure about bringing him in. Same thing goes with Samson Ryan. So I'm interested to see, I think it's about 150,000. Interested to see what he's going to be doing this week, whether he's named as a ruck. Now, if he's named as the predominant ruck and not as a forward, because He's been, I think, touted as a Tom Lynch replacement or a Rewalt replacement, I think. So they're trying to build him up into like a key forward target. So they might use this as a good opportunity to practice that craft and bring someone else into ruck, which might be favourable for them in the long term. So I'm really interested to see what they do there. If they name him as the number one ruck, though, it's probably going to be hard to pass because he was getting like 44 as a sub. So if he actually gets a ruck role instead of a forward role, it could be really interesting for a few weeks period. Now, I expect that there could be some changes coming though. If I just try and have a look at rucks for Richmond. So I think it's not Sonzi, it's Samson Ryan and Nane Curvis. Just trying to think who it is. Go by filter by price. Sonzi, no, I'm trying to think of the guy I'm thinking of. But there is so there's definitely some issues as far as who will be coming into that side. So I'm just trying to work out the best possibility for it. Now, shout out to Clark, I think, brought in Nane Curvis, which is very unlucky for him. Soldo is the one I was thinking of. Now, Soldo, I think, is 2 to 3 weeks, about that, maybe a couple of weeks away. So he would definitely be favourable when that happens. Now, he's 297,000, so I'm not sure you'd go there depending on how long Nane Curvis is out for. But there's definitely something to consider from that point of view. So, yeah, it really does depend on matchups for this week as to, where I'm going. So, Samson Ryan is someone I am looking at to bring in. But the issue that I'm having, and a lot of you are going to have the same issue, is you've got Doherty. I've got Doherty. I've only got 19,000 in the bank, which means I can't go anywhere. And I've got a team where my rookies haven't generated enough cash yet. So, and there's no one really to go down to. Now, if I feel like Samson Ryan, if he's playing the number one ruck, then I might go there because he'll probably get that for at least a couple of weeks. And as a number one ruck, if he pulls out a couple of 80s, then even if he goes forward for a little bit, maybe gets you a 70 or a 60. So 280s and a 60, I could probably cash a little bit of money there at 150,000. So hopefully he just pulls 100 out of his ass or something rather as a ruck. That'd be nice. But it's still an issue. So I'm not quite sold in going that route. I'm not really a big fan on trying to bring in someone expensive either. So I know a few people are looking at, if I go Adelaide, so they're trying to, I don't want to butcher his name, McElhaney. Michael Laney. So, I know a few people going there. He's 244,000. Do I want to spend that much? He's already made 108. So, kudos to those that started him. He's done well the last 2 weeks, but even looking at his stats on the week just gone, I think he had like 10 intercept possessions. So that was heavily impacting the score that he got in a positive way. He scored 103. I'm not sure he's going to get that every week. He was playing on Walters, who literally got schooled him up big time. So, Fremantle's ball use and a whole bunch of other things I don't think were really working for him. They've been quite poor. He had a great game, definitely a great game, and you'd be stoked as an owner. I mean, he went up, 57,000. So, yeah, the first 2 rounds he wasn't as great. So it'll be just interesting about, whether he can show some consistency. I don't really want to be bringing in someone at that price. And at that point, it's like, well, where does that leave you? Because at this point in time, I actually have a couple issues in my side. Number one, I don't think Ridley's top 6 to 10. So, and the reason is I spoke already at length, I think, over the weekend, but Redmond's kind of getting the role that he had in the preseason. So Redmond was pushing up to stoppages, which meant that Ridley was then sort of free out to be the quarterback and then was getting intercepts or the ball was going through him. So any kind of switch or anything outlet sort of, running through the back line went through him in order to go back out the other side, etc. That's not happening now because Ridley's pushing up behind the contest a lot more. So he's getting that sort of handball back and then Redmond's freed up. So it's you can see the difference in scoring as well. That Redmond's now come through with some really good scores and it's really frustrating, but that could switch at any point as well. I mean, that could literally change at any point and then Ridley could all of a sudden go on a run for a month and start averaging you 100 to 110 and you're like, oh, well, there it is now. So, look, I want him out of my side, but for me, I think I'm probably going to then wait until next week. The DPP comes in. I can easily sort of flip him to like a Canelio who will be top 6, I still believe, in forward line. So that way I can actually flip him and then bring in a Zeeble or Sheasel and get these, replacements coming through to my side. Now, if only that was this week. If only Doherty got injured next week and it was an issue for next week, I could have easily brought in Doherty to a forward and thrown Zeeble and Sheasel into defense, or one of them into defense to fix my side. So it's an issue because now I've got, okay, I can't afford anyone. So I'm kind of either way. This week, I'm kind of handcuffed in using two trades. Either I am cutting a rookie short to someone I'm not sure of to make Doherty a thing and make it happen to someone. Otherwise, the other thing I have toyed up with is getting rid of Laird. Now, this is not ideal. They still have a pretty tough run, I think, until just before their bye, and then it really opens up. Like the back end of their year is so good. So I do want him, but I'm trying to look out and I'm trying to work out a way I can keep him. But the only way I can do that is if I get rid of someone else. Like if I get rid of a Setterfield or someone or rather like that, then that's an option. But then who am I playing on field? Another rookie to free up some cash to maybe, I guess, move an Assault on next week is another play, I guess. But then I also want to still bank some points this week, because points for me are key. The only way, let's say, if Setterfield went down to, somebody, then that way I might actually have money to go, okay, well, next week, Ridley to Cornelio, and then, go Hopper to a premium or something like that. And that's the only benefit of having the extra cash is that next week, round 6, any surprise DPPs come in, I can jump on that. Otherwise, I can just try and upgrade and go full primo. So, I'm not disillusioned in that Setterfield. I think Setterfield's still a stepping stone. He's made, I think, nearly 100,000, so I could move him on. But he's still going to get valuable points on field each week at this point in time. And his break-even is not high enough that I kind of have to move on him yet. So, yeah, I mean, 444,000, I could definitely do a lot with him. But the option I have considered is going Laird and Doherty out. And I can actually then go. So even if I went Dawson, who is overpriced, I think, at this point because of his high score. But, he's still going to be top 6, and he still looks very impressive. He's getting that midfield role and also pushing into defense. They look for the ball in his hands, so he's extremely impressive in that fact. But because, and this is something I think a lot of you should consider, I didn't get long, so I missed out on a cash cow there. I started with the extra loophole, which has worked out as far as points on field, but then the cash generation comes in. So because I didn't rate these small forwards and I thought they'd stall in the arse, I picked someone who I thought would come into my side, partway through this year anyway. Now, I can't see much happening on the Sin front as far as Port Adelaide using him just yet. He did okay, I think, in Samford. Nothing crazy. It was like 18 touches. I was like, I don't know if I'm sold on that. So whereas I missed out on the train on Long, Davey looks like he's going to make a little bit of money, so trying to go, okay, well, how much can I keep paying overs for people? Because I've already paid overs on Clary as a captain option, and that's justifiable. Going Laird to someone just to make, that 40K to then get me Doherty to Stewart, is it worth it? Now, in the longevity, Laird I still think will be, top 10. He might just go down to an average of 110 to 115. He is going to be cheaper, though, and he's already dropping at this current point in time, but he has a high enough ceiling to kind of get back over 600s pretty quick if he does drop. So is that worth it? I don't think so. And I think I've already done sideways enough to try and get Clary, to try and get, like Darcy Cameron instead of Witts, which happened to work out. Well, not really, but enough. That I'm just going to start upgrading around and looking for value. And I think I have to go value because, number one, we don't have really the rookies coming on at the moment. The low scores this week from the rookies means that there's probably going to be a slower burn, or you're going to have to cut them short. There's not really anyone coming through either. So the accepting fact now is that, well, Sheasel looks to be a keeper. I think I'm probably going to have to keep Zeeble and probably play him in forward or defense, depending on whichever one. Probably forward is probably the way to go, which means that it's pretty much Cornelio in my forward line and probably like a Darcy Cameron or a Goulden as those two, or a DPP coming in, which allows that option to open up as well. So they're the options there. Grundy I'm going to have to get rid of, so there's another consideration. Marshall I don't think is also going to be top 4. Definitely not top 2. So it pretty much then becomes English in that mix. Now, Witts has been playing sore for most of the year apparently, so he did look okay. So I think Gawn is now a good shake, possibly, um, for one of them. Now, it might be Marshall. Once they get troops back in, he might improve. He might do well. He should score well enough, I think, in the run coming up anyway to at least lift his average and lift his price. So I'm not as concerned with his higher break even at this point. So, and English is another one where I'm waiting for that price to come down in order for me to be able to afford him. So, yeah, this is the bed you kind of lie in when you pick Sicily instead of Sicily. So not Sicily, Doherty instead of Dawson, and picking Wits instead of English. And that's pretty much been, most of my picks outside of that have been pretty good, but two 50-50s have really hurt me as far as having to maneuver my way around it. Oh, and obviously not having Clary on my side, who I had Clary in, I think, for every single week of the preseason outside of, I think it was a week to go with all of the news that came out, but he's just still killing it. So I don't know why I ever doubted Clary for that 1 week period. So let me know if you're regretting any of your decisions, or if you've had people in your side like me and then change it at the last minute, which is really frustrating. The other person I have considered a little bit left wing is Pickett. Now, I think it's like 360 something thousand, had a really big score round one, scored well enough, just gone 89, priced it enough that he's probably going to make a little bit of money. My concern is I think he had like 15 disposals last week, kicked 5 behinds though. So that could have definitely been huge. Kicked, I think, 5 goals in the first round, so he's not always going to do that anyway. But I was looking at him, as a price point. Can I get some, money out of it? Can I get some scores out of it? I just don't know if I trust him for consistency. X factor kind of player. You look at any of those small forwards that get some CBAs. Only had 8 CBAs, so it's not like he's playing like pure midfielder, etc. If Will Day didn't bloody get suspended, actually there is a glimmer of hope because he is challenging it at the tribunal. So I don't think he's going to get off completely. He might try and go from 2 weeks to 1. I think it's a Hail Mary. He might still get stuck with 2. But if he gets off, then Doherty will probably become Will Day, and I can free up at least 70,000, and then all can be well in the world again. Day was getting the most CBAs for that team. Also looked the most dynamic. Now, I had concerns about him not being big enough to be able to handle the pressures of a full season, but he looks good. And yeah, 3 out of 4 rounds. I mean, you can't really complain too much with that. A guy averaging 100 and still priced at 450. I think I'm going to have to look for more spots of opportunity as far as pricing. So for me, I want Dawson, but from a pricing point of view, I don't know if I can keep paying overs. And I mean paying 617 or paying more than what he cost to begin the year by bringing someone in like that when you've got, Sicily's 580 or something and dropping because he's finally had a bad score. Sinclair's dropping. Stewart, I think, will stabilize and then still drop. So, Stewart's at least for me over probably Dawson, because last year I think Stewart was the highest averaging defender if you take out the fact that he got concussed. Without a concussion, average 115. So the other consideration is, not that I'd recommend going there, but Mitch Duncan got 119 and he got a lot of kicks. Like, first half he was on, I think it was about 70 or 80 Supercoach. He was absolutely flying. Second half, when they just blitzed him, he got a little bit less. So part of me is a little concerned maybe with a really good ball user back there. Atkins has obviously pushed up from, he was in defence a bit last year, pushed up into the midfield. So he's key up in there now. And Duncan looks like another key distributor from that back line. So is it going to be Stewart getting a lot of, the ball? Or is he going to get it and hand it off to Duncan? Or are they going to try and go through Duncan a little bit as well? So it is a little bit interesting in that sense. Duncan is priced well enough. I think it's about 480. Only for 1 game sample though, but they do play, I think it's West Coast this week. So that'll be interesting as far as how that goes. So Mitchie Duncan is a slow shake for an option, but either way, I'm not quite sure which way I'm going to go. Ladies and gentlemen, I probably have to get rid of a rookie. Now, if Sin Cotter gets named, I'm tempted to bring him straight in. Reason is that Doherty is out for 4 to 6. That gives him really good security for that 4 to 6 period window. Even if he comes back after 4, that's 2 price rises for a 100k player. He probably should be able to get you close to 200 anyway. With Doherty out, there should be a fairly good role anyway with Walshy there and him going into that back line. And maybe Cowan coming in off the bench, I think would be pretty much foreseeable for me. So, yeah, look, it'd be interesting to see how the sort of teams are matched up and named. But at this point, I am kind of thinking I have to go for value. I have to keep trying to upgrade my side rather than going sideways. So the issue is, again, let me know what you're thinking. But for me, I don't like anyone below Doherty's price. I don't have enough to really go anyone outside of, say, like a Bailey Dale, who is serviceable. But why would I go Bailey Dale if I'm about to use like Zeeble or Sheasel in defense? Then that pretty much means it's like Dacos. I need to get Sinclair. No, maybe not. Maybe Sinclair, Sicily, Stewart, and Dawson, which means I really need to try and target one of those as a priority now, and then get some reassurance back there. Ridley can then actually get to an actual premium, and then try and get Setterfield and Hopper and stuff out like that as well, and hope with some of the injuries and carnage coming out of some teams at the moment that some rookies actually do show up on the horizon, not as sub, would be nice. Shout out to Johnson from Fremantle, who lost cash, I think, this week, or Hewitt definitely lost cash. So, look, that's my team. Yeah. So, I don't know about Samson Ryan. Again, so we're just going to go for the shits and giggles here and let me know if you think I'm absolutely crazy. But either way, I think I have to use 2 trades to get up to an actual premium. So the only thing that I don't really sold on this at the moment, so don't quote me on it because it'll probably definitely change once teams are announced. But in order to make things happen, Constable, you can go in there. I just hit trade. No, switch, mate, switch. Stupid app. And then we'll go with Stewart. So, Chris has some very interesting theories here as far as VC and C. What am I going with? That should have just let me do it anyway. Why can't I trade? Man, this app sucks. That should literally be a switch in to my side. Anyway. So that's pretty much where we are at. If I can do this, it'd be nice. Nope. Right, well, obviously that's broken. So, as far as VC and C for this week, real quick, I apologize. It's been a little bit long-winded, this one, because, again, you can see the rationale on how, even now, I'm not completely set on what to do. All I know is I need to get Doherty out. I know I don't like Ridley. I could get rid of Setterfield, but I think he's still good enough for points off field this week. He's probably a next week option when I can flick a few people around. Yeah, so I think Jimby should get named. Constable hopefully comes back into that side and actually starts making me some money, which would be lovely. And as far as VCNC this week, so Brisbane Lions, I don't mind Dunkley against North. Could be an option, but they're playing out in the sticks, I think, because no one wants North Melbourne anywhere near the city centre. So that's one. Probably go Clary against Essendon, I think, is the one for me. So if I can go VC from him at 4:10 p.m., that's what I'm going to be doing. So VC from him. Port Adelaide, interesting. So I don't mind Bontempelli against, say, Port at Adelaide Oval, but that's going to be a huge affair, I think. And Adelaide Oval playing before them is the Essendon Melbourne game, so that'll be interesting. Hopefully the track holds up for them there. That's literally back-to-back at Adelaide Oval. Wowee, that's awesome. I am considering going Marshall against Collingwood. Now, Collingwood got beaten up huge last time. Now, Marshall did get subbed out. The last game was on track for about a 120. Got subbed out. Now, I think he should do really well against Collingwood. Now, the reason Marshall did okay, but the player he was up against from the Suns, I think, was VFL Ruckman of the Year, Chris was saying. So he's still a very serviceable Ruckman, whereas at the moment at Collingwood, you've got like McStay or these other sort of two-bit players. And I think Marshall's just going to dominate the rucks per se, but then also get the ball around the ground because I'm not sure if they'll know where to go or how to follow him. So that is an issue. I did also speak that I am concerned, though, with the Saints and Marshall, just because Saints are running down the wing a lot more. I think Pies will be really onto that, though, so it might actually be a little bit more of a slower game style for Saints this round, because I think Collingwood are going to probably try and look to stop the run from the Saints down the wings. So maybe they do have to come more corridor board, and if that's the case with an outmatched opponent, then they might actually try and bring it inboard and try and go to a Marshall, which might actually help his scoring as well this week. So because I can't see Pies just letting them run around the outside. I think their pressure is way too good for that. If you have like a Josh Kelly, he could be a really good shake against Hawthorn. Otherwise, I think even Cornelia this week against Hawthorn, just in general, if you have him, I wouldn't get rid of him because that's the sort of game he can go 170 to 200 on, and it would be Cornelia for sure. So Josh Kelly might get some attention just because it's Josh Kelly, and I don't think their defenders are really hurting them at this point. So I can't see him going to Whitfield or someone else. I think it's Josh Kelly. Yeah, is pretty much the one that I would go for there. So I'm probably going Clary into, say, Bontempelli, mainly because I don't think it's going to get outside of Clary. Otherwise, the option is I might actually go Dunkley VC into a Clary C because that's probably the safest option, knowing that Dunkley might spike out a really good game, and if he does, I can just take it then. So, yeah, it's either you take your captain as a vice captain, and that way you have a backup, which I think is probably a really sound advice. Otherwise, Dunkley hasn't really been setting the world alight as far as high ceiling yet. So going Clary as a VC is probably a nice option. If he goes 120, 130, whatever, you take it. And then if he doesn't, then you can roll the dice into a Bontempelli a little bit more or go for one of your other options. Yeah, so if I still have Laird, I might go Laird VC, Clary C. But I'm not sure if Laird's got the high ceiling to go with Carlton this week. So, yeah, look, that's my team. Let me know what you think. Let me know who you are most upset by. This is why we play the game. We try and, adjust and play as best we can and then try and upgrade. So my challenge will be to try and look for value and try and upgrade my side probably before some others and try and be a little bit more aggressive in that sense to then try and pick up points and rankings off people elsewhere. So the difference is only a couple, like 100 or so points, like even Dawson to Doherty, like 170 points. Now that could be easily made up by having, an extra premium on your field while others are still running rookies. So it's this balancing act where you do need to try and upgrade your side and then chase people down. I don't think I'm going to win this year because of those 50-50 choices, but this is where the chase comes in to be, top 1,000, top 500 comes from outside of the first 4 rounds. So let me know what you think and who you've got for VCNC, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks for sticking around. Bye.